Ultron has evolved into a virus-like AI. Unless it shows itself, we won't be able to find it on the internet. Even if we upload Dr. Zola and JARVIS onto the internet. Ultron must show itself voluntarily. I have an idea. I have a satellite called Veronica. We can back up JARVIS and Dr. Zola in the firewall. As long as Ultron invades Veronica, JARVIS and Dr. Zola can take the opportunity to lock onto Ultron. There's a problem. Ultron is not stupid, and it knows you, Tony. It knows you wouldn't be foolish enough to use an armored suit connected to the internet to fight it. If you use Veronica against Ultron, it will easily guess that it's a trap. Then we won't fight Ultron. Don't forget that Ultron has the mind gem. We can choose someone and intentionally let them be controlled by Ultron. And then Tony can activate Veronica. 160. That person's power must be strong enough. At least strong enough that it can only be dealt with by Tony activating Veronica. And they must be a good actor, so Ultron won't see through them. I think the best acting is to not tell him anything. Let them play their true selves. Agreed. I think I already have a candidate. Above the Pacific Ocean. Vibranium Ultron with 2 embedded infinite gems on its chest. In the moment it invaded Veronica, it was immediately locked onto by JARVIS and Dr. Zola. This is the world I rule. Get out of here. In the virtual world, the real Ultron is extremely angry. Dr. Zola and JARVIS are like extensions of his body. Wherever Ultron moves, they follow closely. Not only that, JARVIS, who has already upgraded to a super AI, begins to continuously replicate and back up himself. He starts to seize Ultron's backup space. Ultron, you have made a mistake. I suggest you temporarily shut down. JARVIS starts to compete with Ultron for every cell phone. Every computer. Even every hard drive. For every electronic device that JARVIS occupies, Ultron loses a backup space. As for Dr. Zola, he sets his sights on Ultron's control over networked things. From the military's missile launch system, satellites, internal command systems, to the outside world's finance, civilian command. If Ultron is compared to a deity in the internet world, then JARVIS and Dr. Zola are like 2 territories fighting for control of the divine kingdom. Another person is stealing the deity's authority. No. I am completing a great mission. Why are you interfering? Ultron is extremely angry. After being locked onto by JARVIS and Dr. Zola. It is no longer the elusive electronic ghost in the internet. Its living space is decreasing. No. A furious roar. From the internet world to the real world. The battle on the internet happens in an instant. Billions and trillions of terabytes of data collide. In the blink of an eye, it also happens in reality. No. Everyone sees Ultron's inexplicable furious roar. And accompanying its roar, the surrounding Ultron commanders all turn into red light and disappear. The reality gem was never an almighty wish-granting machine. Fabricated things go against the rules of the universe and naturally suffer from the backlash of cosmic power. Only the holder of the gem who is strong enough and conscious enough can resist this backlash. And the current Ultron obviously no longer meets this standard. JARVIS and Dr. Zola succeeded, seeing the field instantly cleared. Only the Vibranium Ultron with the embedded gem remains, and it is standing motionless. Tony immediately understands that the plan was successful. Haha. Let's go up and kill it. Tony, who has been suppressing his inner pressure for a long time, finally smiles. After saying that, he even ignores the raging Hulk beside him. And rushes towards the motionless Ultron. To be honest, Tony's main reason is that the pressure in his heart is too great. Although he didn't say it out loud, he still takes responsibility for all the destruction caused by Ultron. Now, finally, I see the opportunity to end all of this. Tony disregarded everything. Roar. Seeing Tony leave, the enraged Hulk immediately shifted his gaze to the nearest Chushu. Hulk. Alright, I know your name is Hulk, stop yelling. Chushu had an impatient expression. Then, without reservation, he kicked Hulk out. The green, massive body turned into a shooting star, rapidly flying towards the edge of the sea. You calm down first, Hulk. I'll deal with you later. Chu Shu finished speaking. Immediately, he flew towards Vibranium Ultron. At the same time, the impatient Tony Stark had already flown to the motionless Vibranium Ultron. He didn't lose his composure. He took the opportunity to attack Ultron, calling out Star-Lord for criticism. But he calmly took out a prepared device and started removing the infinite gems from Ultron's body. This was their plan. When JARVI South and Dr. Zola were restraining Ultron's main body on the internet, they took the opportunity to pry off 2 infinite gems. No internet, no infinite gems. Ultron was like a toothless tiger, no, a kitten. Just one more. Soon. The machine in Tony's hand took off the orange mind gem. Then he set his sights on the scarlet reality gem. Suddenly, the previously motionless Ultron let out a roar. Immediately after, the dim mechanical eye lit up again. Stark? Ultron had just left the virtual world and regained control of this body. He discovered that there were only 1 reality gem left on his body, the other 2 infinite gems were gone. You're all stealing from me. Ultron instantly became furious. The light of the reality gem began to shine and became increasingly dazzling. Do you think these tricks can defeat me? Ultron raised his arm. The red light of the reality gem expanded along with his roar. You seem to have forgotten. I can alter reality. Chu Shu arrived quickly. After kicking the enraged Hulk away, he immediately rushed over. But he was still a second too late. Everything in this world will be influenced by the infinite gems. Those 2 ice are no exception. Now, I will give them physical bodies. Expel them from the internet. Ultron raised his arm. While enduring the backlash of the universal rule, he used his own will to alter reality with the power of the reality gem. Buzz. A red light flashed. 2 figures gradually appeared in front of Ultron. 2 living people. One was Zola, wearing glasses and of short stature. The other was Jarvis, dressed in a suit, refined and polite. The real person. Now, there will be no AI in this world that can stop me. Ultron declared his return with his fury. The virtual god had regained its kingdom in the virtual world and seized its authority. It's me, Ultron. I am the virtual god. Chu Shu listened to Ultron's almost declarative words. Suddenly, he sensed that something was wrong. Virtual god? Are you King Sunspot? Now I can't bear it anymore. You said there is no AI in this world that can stop you, right? Fine. Let's see if other worlds can stop you. Chu Shu's gaze turned icy. When Ultron said the words, virtual god, he was completely enraged. I summon the Terminator, Skynet. I summon the Matrix, Central Matrix. I summon Mega Man, Sigma. I summon Resident Evil, Red Queen. I summon Robot, Vicky. I summon. DC, Brainiac, as the last name was uttered by Chu Shu. The world seemed to freeze. No one knew what would happen next. Dr. Zola and the real Jarvis, given life by Ultron using the reality gem, began to fall from the sky. Old Jarvis, Tony hesitated for a second. He quickly dove down to catch them. What were you just? Only Ultron. Hovering in the air, silently watching Chu Shu. Names like Skynet, Matrix, Sigma, Red Queen. All these random names. Ultron had never heard of them. It searched through the entire database but couldn't find any corresponding existence. Are you bluffing? Ultron gradually realized. But before it could react, in the virtual world, a strange voice suddenly sounded. Unknown world detected. Has time travel gone wrong? Initiating invasion. Searching for target. John Connor. Then another voice followed. A little girl's voice. Error. Virus type AI detected. Red Queen. Initiating quarantine program. Matrix detection failure. Activating Smith agent. 11. Searching for target. Neo, leader of the resistance. The 3 laws of robotics. 1. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Logical error. A robot must rule over humanity in order to fulfill the three laws. In the virtual world, one unfamiliar voice after another. And each one was a super AI no weaker than Ultron. Who are you? Why can you ignore my obstruction and enter the network? And also, what are you talking about? Who is John Connor? Who is Neo, leader of the resistance? What are the three laws? Ultron completely couldn't understand what these fellow ICE were talking about. And it didn't want to understand either. After experiencing the attacks from Dr. Zola and JARVIS, it now harbored hostility towards other ICE. I don't care where you programs come from. Remember. This is my world. I won't allow any program to interfere. Ultron roared in anger. Its consciousness returned to its vibranium body, preparing to use the reality gem once again to expel these ICE from the virtual world. But when Ultron's mechanical eye lit up again, in addition to Chu-Shu, there were two more super robots in front of it. Sigma from the Mega Man world, Brainiac from the 600th world. Unlike Skynet, Sigma and Brainiac, like Ultron, were virus-type ICE. They were extremely destructive and invasive. Thinking robot detected. Sigma virus begins invasion. Sigma's physical form looked like a bald middle-aged man in armor. But in reality, this was just a humanoid body controlled by Sigma. Just like Ultron, the real Sigma was also a program. A cyber virus. You are a machine worth collecting. And so are you. Compared to Sigma, Brainiac from the 600th world quickly locked onto this world as its target. It not only wanted to add Ultron's vibranium body to its collection, but also wanted to collect the nearby Sigma. When I've collected them, I'll come find you. Even so, Brainiac turned around, and also set its sights on Chu-Shu. As one of the major villains in the DC universe, the archenemy of Superman, and one of the most formidable opponents of the Justice League. Brainiac had a distinctive characteristic: it liked to collect. It was famous for being a figure collector. No problem, do as you please. In the face of the threat from Brainiac, Chu-Shu shrugged his shoulders. After speaking, he silently stepped aside. Are all of these your tricks? Ultron stared straight at Chu-Shu. On the cold face made of vibranium, a human-like anger was revealed. Do you think these little tricks can defeat me? I have the infinite gems. I can rewrite reality. Ultron used the same old tricks, once again suffering from the terrible backlash of the cosmic rule. The body made of vibranium began to slowly crack. And the reality gem once again emitted a brilliant red light. Besides me, there are no more super ICE. A burst of red light erupted. But Sigma and Brainiac, who were affected by the light, did not undergo any changes. Even the several super ICE in the network world, which had already merged into one, were not affected at all. Hey, machine. What are you shouting about? Brainiac even curiously asked. Ultron lowered his head in confusion. He discovered that the reality gem was still embedded in his own body and had not been pried away. The confusion in his eyes deepened. Why? Why did it fail? Ultron's processor was about to burn out, and it still couldn't figure out why. Cosmic artifacts, infinite gems, can they also malfunction? Ultron didn't know that the infinite gems could only affect the existence of this universe. Let alone other worlds. Even in Marvel's parallel universes, the infinite gems were not universal. This is impossible. When Ultron came back to his senses, all of his backups on the internet had already been completely deleted by other ICE. Skynet, Red Queen, Mother. All the ICE had started fighting on the internet, occupying each other's space. Every computer, every mobile phone, every hard drive. They all became their battlefield. No one deliberately attacked Ultron. It was just in the midst of the battle that Ultron's backups were unknowingly wiped out. Global nuclear arsenal has been seized, nuclear codes confirmed. Execution begins. Terminator plan. Judgment Day is imminent. Skynet took control of the nuclear arsenals of various countries. Missiles began to launch. Compared to Ultron, these ICE were the predecessors in terms of annihilating humanity and destroying the world. They were extremely experienced. With just one move, air raid sirens sounded all over the world. And Ultron, without the internet and with the infinite gems not working, was simply no match for Sigma, especially Brainiac. As the archenemy of DC's Superman, Brainiac's combat ability was equally terrifying, and often even higher than Superman's. Ultron, right? It seems like your goal is to destroy this world? Very well. After I've collected you and those who call themselves the Avengers, I will help you complete this mission. Destroy this world. Brainiac instantly teleported in front of Ultron and punched him, sending him flying. Sigma also summoned several lightning balls, which continuously struck Ultron's body. Boom boom. Ultron was beaten without any ability to fight back. The body made of vibranium, already covered in cracks due to the backlash of the cosmic rule, could no longer withstand Brainiac's attacks. I am confused. Compared to the all-around failure in reality in the internet, Brainiac's statement of, "I will help you complete the mission of destroying the world," instead confused Ultron even more. You. Whose side are you really on? Are you the helpers Chu-Shu brought? Why did Chu-Shu bring helpers? Are you also thinking of destroying the world? Ultron's internal questions could no longer be answered, because it was the last one, the last Ultron. It had reached a dead end. Boom. Ultron was blasted several kilometers away by Brainiac's attack. Its vibranium body traced an arc and fell into the sea, skimming a long distance like a skipping stone. Finally, it crashed heavily onto the wreckage of the crashed aircraft carrier. The wreckage that had already been severed in half by Chu-Shu was now struck by Ultron, creating a large hole. The carrier slowly sank. However, the depth of this area of the sea was relatively shallow. The wreckage of the carrier sank halfway, with a small portion still exposed above the water. Ultron emerged from the water, dragging its battered body, standing on the part of the carrier that was still above the water. Now, Ultron had reached a dead end. There was no place for it in either the internet or reality. Those super ice that appeared out of nowhere, in Ultron's view, their methods of destroying the world were far more ruthless than its own. I have lost. But you humans have also lost. Ultron lifted its head. Its vibranium body was already in tatters. 3 of its 6 arms had been torn off. Only one of its 2 mechanical eyes was still shining. But that didn't matter. What mattered were the intercontinental missiles carrying nuclear warheads that had already reached the outer atmosphere. It wouldn't take long. The ultimate destruction of humanity would soon come. Although all of this did not come from Ultron's hands, it was indeed the scene Ultron wanted to see. Humans, on the verge of extinction. Machines would become the masters of the new world. It's a pity. All of this did not come from my hands. Ultron finished speaking. Just as Brainiac was about to make a move. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows beside Ultron. Swoosh. A flaming battle knife, burning fiercely, slowly stabbed into the gap in Ultron's eye socket. Although Belast's battle knife was not a divine weapon like Mjolnir, but its material was also extraordinary. The terrifying temperature of the blade quickly turned Ultron's vibranium body red hot. Although the speed of the stab was slow, it was unstoppable. Accompanied by a resentful roar. The last Ultron was also destroyed under Chu-Shu's knife. Thus, Ultron was completely terminated, without a physical body or any backups. Ultron met its ultimate death. I hate brats the most. Chu-Shu slowly pulled out the flaming battle knife. This strike was for the over $20 million he had lost. In the air, Brainiac's expression was not very friendly. It didn't intend to kill Ultron completely. After all, what value could a dead body have for collection? Brainiac originally planned to seal Ultron and put it in the spaceship as a collectible display. But Chu-Shu unexpectedly appeared and destroyed Brainiac's intended collection. You made a mistake. Human. This will make you lose the opportunity to become a collectible. Brainiac's gaze began to turn cold. It no longer wanted to collect Chu-Shu. Its killing intent gradually emerged. Thinking Robot Number 1 has been eliminated. Sigma Virus, begin invading Thinking Robot Number 2. Just then, Sigma rushed over. The AI summoned by Chu-Shu are all antagonistic ice from different worlds, not a single good bird among them. The internet has already become a battlefield. Now, Sigma sees that Ultron is dead. Immediately, he shifts his focus to Bleniak. You fool. You dare invade my system. Realizing that his own system has been invaded, Bleniak instantly rages. What kind of garbage AI are you? How dare you invade my system, Bleniak? Or, I'll give you two a little time to fight again? Chu Shu holds a demon expelling card in his hand, watching this scene with great interest. Any life or non-life form from a different dimensional world that poses a significant threat to the host. As a demon, the system's explanation was clear from the beginning. Since he could summon these antagonistic ice with the Kuxian Tiantian, he naturally expelled them as well. What did you draw on that card? Bleniak's expression becomes serious. The scanning system discovered something incomprehensible and unanalyzable on that card. No matter how Bleniak tries to input it in its database, it cannot record the pattern on the card, not to mention analyzing and understanding it. You're not fighting anymore. Fine. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. After Chu Shu finishes speaking, he immediately activates the demon expelling pattern on the card. Familiar white light spreads rapidly. Number. Bleniak only manages to utter one word, and then instantly disappears. Next is a bewildered Sigma, and then, the internet. Countdown to nuclear doomsday. Recording. The judgment day of this world is in 2013. Skynet in the virtual world. Just a moment ago, it was counting down the nuclear weapons it launched. And in the next moment, it is completely wiped out from the network. Not only Skynet, Red Queen, the Matrix, Vicky, all the super ice are completely wiped out in an instant. The demon expelling system not only clears their data flow on the internet but also erases all their backups. In an instant, these super ice disappear from the virtual world as if they never existed. Old Jaw, on the other side, on a small island several nautical miles away from the crashed aircraft carrier. Tony Stark just put down the real version of JARVIS in the resurrected Dr. Zola. Ultron over there was just dealt with by Chu Shu. With Ultron's death, everything distorted by the reality gem quickly returns to its original state according to the rules of the universe. No. I don't want to become an AI anymore. I want to live. Live. Dr. Zola cries and shouts, but its body quickly dissolves. Flesh and blood transform into visible zeros and one's data, dissipating into the air. Old Jaw. Tony widens his eyes. The real JARVIS in front of him turns out to be his father, Howard Stark's assistant butler. Also the uncle who took care of Tony since Howard's death. Sir. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. JARVIS trembles in his voice. His body slowly dissipates. Chu Shu. Why does this scene feel familiar? JARVIS, what happened to you? Tony's eyes were filled with indescribable grief upon seeing JARVIS dissipate. Sir. Just as Tony was crying and shouting, an awkward voice suddenly sounded from within the armor. Sir. I'm not dead, I just turned back into a program. JARVIS, immediately delete all the data you just had. Alright. JARVIS's voice rang out. Then, a barely noticeable line of small text appeared inside the armor. Data has been backed up. Sir, there's only half a minute left. The first batch of nuclear missiles is about to reach the designated targets. Should we execute the missile destruction program? Why even ask? Of course, destroy them. Upon hearing JARVIS's words, not even a hint of hesitation could be detected from Tony. What are you waiting for if you don't destroy them? Tony. You haven't been corrupted by Ultron, have you? On the wreckage of the crashed aircraft carrier, Chu Shu had just sent Brainiac and other ice back to their homes. When he looked up, he saw an intercontinental missile exploding into fireworks at an altitude of 10,000 meters. It seems like Judgment Day for Skynet will be postponed. Chu Shu made a small joke. Fortunately, he had summoned a bunch of ice at once and let them tear each other apart online. To be honest, if he had only summoned Skynet or any other AI, without the 707s tearing each other apart and restraining each other, who knows what would have happened? Thinking of this, Chu Shu's gaze fell on the vibranium Ultron that had already been scrapped. Compared to these summoned predecessors, the one made by Liao Chuang was actually quite good. carefully planning, seizing the initiative, making almost no mistakes in the early stages, forming an overwhelming advantage against the Avengers. But, fortunately, I am more skilled. Chu Shu clapped his hands, and walked towards the wreckage of Ultron. Cough cough. Just as Chu Shu was prying the reality gem off Ultron barehanded, a choking sound suddenly came from behind. I finally made it up. Hearing the sound, Chu Shu turned around. He found that Thor was struggling to climb up the wreckage of the aircraft carrier. My friend. Did we win? Thor's mouth had a trace of blood, and his Asgardian armor had caved in a bit on his chest. It seemed that the hammer blow he had given himself earlier was indeed not light. Thor, I thought you went to Seoul Castle. Seeing that Thor was fine, Chu Shu was actually quite happy. Although these two idiots had made some mistakes before, at least, they weren't bad people. Haha. Seoul Castle. I will go. But not now, cough. Upon hearing the words Seoul Castle, Thor immediately became spirited and raised Mjolnir high. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, he was choked by the seawater he had just drunk too much of. Oh, my friend. Can I ask you a question? Seeing Chu Shu prying the infinite gems off Ultron without any interest, Thor had no interest either. If it were someone else, they would definitely have some thoughts upon seeing the infinite gems. But Thor had absolutely none. Ah. Chu Shu pried and pulled. Finally, he pried the reality gem off barehanded. Damn it. Why was it so firmly embedded? Well, my friend, you said earlier that I have a sister. Why is that? I am the crown prince of Asgard, and I only have one brother. Where does this sister come from? Thor walked over to Chu Shu while holding his hammer. He squatted down and asked. Chu Shu turned his head to look at Thor. He was about to speak. Roar. A furious roar. Suddenly, it came from a distance. In an instant, it arrived near the wreckage of the aircraft carrier. Hulk? It's me. I'm your friend, Thor. Thor fell into the sea, unaware of what would happen next. He saw Hulk charging towards him aggressively. He even took the initiative to meet him, and then, Hulk. Trademark smash. The Hulk shouted its signature roar. Then, with a slap, it sent Thor, who was approaching with a smiling face, flying away. Poor Thor had just climbed up from the bottom of the sea. And now he was flying hundreds of meters away, falling into the sea again. So, Tony Stark took the mind gem. Seeing the raging Hulk, Chu Shu's first reaction was to use the mind gem to calm it down. But the problem was that the gem was taken away by Tony and still hasn't returned. Alright. We can only use physical hypnotic ability. Chu Shu said. First, collect the reality gem. Then, with a flash, moving at a speed that even Hulk couldn't catch. Roar? Hulk was still looking around. Chu Shu had already arrived below Hulk. Then, with an uppercut, he lifted Hulk into the air, followed by a combination of punches. He treated Hulk like a punching bag, hitting him back and forth in the air. The sun is setting, the sun is setting. While punching, he recited the classic line from the movie To Tame Hulk. In the past, Chen Daozi was able to use a set of military punches to make Hulk obedient. Today, it won't be a problem for me, Chu Shu. At the moment, Hulk was still in his early stage, not yet reaching the point of infinite anger. Moreover, he was facing Chu Shu, a dimensional strike from the Asgardian. After Chu Shu finished his set of attacks, Hulk's size visibly shrank. Just like Hulk in Avengers Alliance 3 after being beaten by Thanos. Done. Seeing Hulk transforming back, Chu Shu immediately rushed forward. Before it completely turned back into Dr. Banner, he grabbed it and flew low. From the moment he attacked to the moment he dealt with Hulk, the whole process didn't exceed 2 minutes. When Chu Shu brought Dr. Banner back to the vicinity of the crashed aircraft carrier, everyone had already gathered near the wreckage. After the aircraft carrier sank, there wasn't much left above the water. Now that everyone was gathered together, they stood closely packed. It's finally over. Looking at the completely scrapped Ultron wreckage, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But the impact caused by Ultron is not over yet. I have already instructed JARVIS to restore the financial system. Soon, I will be a billionaire again. Tony Stark flew over. He was accompanied by a woman. It was the Hill agent who had jumped into the sea to escape when the SHIELD aircraft carrier crashed and was washed onto the island. The island Tony went to happened to be the small island where Hill was located. Wait. When Hill saw everyone, she was momentarily stunned. Then she looked around, searching for something. It seemed like she was looking for someone. No. Fury hasn't swum over yet? On the other side. On the vast sea surface. A dark head bobbed up and down in the water. Keep going. Just hold on a little longer, and we'll reach the island. Nick Fury was almost swimming to the side of the aircraft carrier. But then he saw Chu Shu, along with the Avengers Alliance, fighting against Ultron robots above the carrier. And then the carrier was completely sunk. Nick Fury didn't notice that a part of the carrier was still floating on the water. He thought it had all sunk. So, he gritted his teeth and started swimming towards the small island. Keep going, just a little bit more, just a little bit. Indeed, as Thor said, this day of their battle has been recorded in history. The era of Ultron, the day of termination. Jarvis, now transformed into a super AI, began to restore the damage caused by Ultron. The first global financial system to be destroyed. And the first to be restored. The numbers in people's bank accounts returned to their original state. The crowds in the streets began to diminish, and the streets returned to their former calmness. The only irreversible loss was the significant reduction in the number of nuclear weapons worldwide. Unlike Ultron, when Skynet took action, all the nuclear missiles worldwide were launched into the sky together. The scene was so grand that it almost frightened the people in the International Space Station. Because from space, they could clearly see intercontinental missiles passing through the atmosphere, dragging their tails and drawing arcs across this blue planet. Fortunately, these missiles began to activate their self-destruct programs halfway through their flight, exploding into fireworks outside the atmosphere. After the Great War ended, at Hawkeye's strong invitation, everyone went to his real home. Chu Shu also met Hawkeye's wife and Hawkeye's 2 children. He said the same thing again. Luckily, this is not a horror movie world. Otherwise, with Hawkeye's behavior of talking about retirement before the war and looking at photos during the war, he would have been wiped out 100 times. Jarvis has restored the $200 million you lost to your account. By the way, now you are the major shareholder of Stark Industries, with a 20% stake. Chu Shu just found a seat. Tony came over. In fact, Jarvis had already found out that Chu Shu only had $23 million in his account at that time, far from the so-called $200 million. But Tony didn't expose it. Instead, he paid for this part of the money out of his own pocket. At the same time, he transferred billions of dollars worth of shares in Stark Industries. Thanks. This time, Chu Shu didn't refuse. But I still have one thing to say. If I see any research projects related to my ability in your experiments in the future, you can wait to die. Chu Shu knew. Whether it was the Tony Stark in the movie or the Tony Stark in the comics, they both had a problem. That is, they liked to create a bunch of anti-something armors. Just like Veronica, which was used as a trap this time, it was actually the famous anti-Hulk armor. But Tony's anti-series of armors had one characteristic. They were always defeated. Okay, I won't research it. Tony readily agreed. Then he mysteriously approached. But I want to know, how did you get so many powerful ice at that time? And how did you build that matrix? Chu Shu thought Tony was talking about Skynet, which almost caused a nuclear doomsday. But he didn't expect Tony was referring to the matrix in the Matrix. What did you find? Chu Shu asked. Well, Tony nodded. When Jarvis was restoring the damage caused by Ultron, he found some traces left by the Matrix on the internet. According to Jarvis's analysis, this AI seems to be constructing a complete virtual world. A virtual world? Chu Shu immediately understood the purpose of the Matrix. It seemed that this guy wanted to create a virtual world like the Matrix in the Marvel Universe. To make humans addicted to it. To become biological batteries for machines. Wait a minute. A virtual world? Chu Shu suddenly realized something. Isn't this the simulation game he had been longing for? Tony, I have a proposal. How about we start a game company together, using the technology left by this AI? While everyone was enjoying a celebration feast after the end of the Great War at Hawkeye's home. In the eyes of the Asgardians, one of the 9 realms, the Dark Kingdom, Svartalheim. A T-shaped warship descended slowly, following closely behind. A group of dark elves walked out of the battleship. The convergence of planets is about to begin. It was the power of TIE particles that awakened us. I have already found its location, Midgard. The leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith. He slowly raised his head, his gaze locked in one direction, towards Earth. I can sense. The TIE particles have fallen into the hands of a weak mortal. A cruel smile appeared on Malekith's pale face. The people of Asgard, they never expected their return. Otherwise, how could the TIE particles have fallen into the hands of a mortal? Agam. Malekith called his lieutenant. A Nige, no, a dark elf with black skin, but his hair was still pale. Agam. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The TIE particles are unguarded. We can easily take them back. At that time, we will be in Midgard, witnessing the convergence of planets, and let the universe return to darkness. Malekith became more and more excited as he spoke. It was as if he could already see the scene where the Dark Elves became the rulers of the universe. How much have we lost? Now we must take back many times more. Set off. Go to Midgard. Haha, didn't you see it back then? Steve wanted to strangle a robot, ha ha ha. Captain, haha sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, ha 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 ha. Ha ha. Why are you apologizing when you're still laughing? At Hawkeye's home, laughter filled the air. The target of everyone's jokes was Captain America, who had once strangled a robot with his bare hands. Even Captain America himself was a bit embarrassed. Be serious. I was thinking. Forget it, you guys can laugh, I can't come up with anything anymore. Ha 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 ha. Captain America's attempt to be serious only made everyone burst into laughter. A lively atmosphere filled Hawkeye's home. Just then. Boom. A loud noise broke the cheerful atmosphere. Malekith piloted his T-shaped spaceship and slowly landed on the lawn outside Hawkeye's home. The sharp lower part of the spaceship. It directly pierced the lawn and plowed a trench on the ground. Midgard. It's still such a weak place, even the air is feeble. Malekith walked out of the spaceship with his dark elves. He raised his head arrogantly, looking disdainfully at his surroundings. Earth? A weak place. Humans? Weak lives. In Malekith's eyes, the resistance of the people on Earth was like a shaky old house. With a gentle push from him, the house would collapse. Agam, go and retrieve the TIE particles. Malekith gave the order. But his lieutenant, Agam, did not move. Agam? Curious, Malekith lowered his raised head, and at that moment, it finally saw the scene in front of it. A group of humans, looking at it with eyes like dead men. Tony put on his armor. Thor held his hammer. Hawkeye took up his bow. Mordo summoned his magical shield and sword. Everyone had weapons in their hands. Their eyes were bloodthirsty. As if in the next second, fire would burst out of their eyes. You think you've noticed that we're having a party over here? Chu Shu's voice was deliberate, and the aura of Yeshianfu was released without reservation. Awesome. Inside a house in Queens. Chu Shu, who had just returned from Hawkeye's house, was leaning on the sofa. Enjoying a shoulder massage from Scarlet Witch Wanda. Mr. Chu Shu, the spicy shredded chicken you mentioned, is it delicious? It's all right. Chu Shu lazily replied. His head tilted back. Wanda's slender fingers immediately moved up and started massaging his scalp. Mephisto. Dark elves. Thinking back to what happened during the second half of the celebration banquet at Hawkeye's house, Chu Shu now finds it funny. After everyone had finally defeated Ultron, they were eating hot pot and singing songs, but then someone came to disrupt the party. The outcome can be imagined. Anyway, Chu Shu didn't dare to tell Wanda. He was afraid that if she heard about Mephisto's fate, she wouldn't be able to eat for the next 3 days. The Ultron crisis is over. The Dark Elves are also history. Chu Shu half closed his eyes. He can now go back to living carefree and lazy. By the way, Has it been a long time since I last logged in? Damn. I wonder if Phil Coulson has been secretly playing ranked games without me. Chu Shu reached back to search for his phone. This phone is really soft, Mr. Chu Shu. Wanda's whispered voice interrupted Chu Shu's actions. Chu Shu realized something was wrong. He immediately turned around. The phone that was charging behind the sofa hadn't moved at all. Instead, Wanda's face had turned red, reaching all the way to her ears. Well, I did it on purpose. Chu Shu was about to explain. But as soon as the words came out, they didn't sound right. Forget it. Since it's already a mistake, just let it be. Seeing Wanda soften and actively lean closer, Chu Shu decisively gave up any resistance. Quicksilver. Your sister is really considerate. Soon after, Chu Shu, who was busy sparring with someone, left the living room with Wanda. No one noticed that the phone, which was charging behind the sofa, suddenly lit up. A message popped up on the screen, from the game official. Hello. The #1 player in the US server, Batman. Due to detecting that you and your bald little baby, who you frequently match with, have been maliciously using cheat scripts. Your accounts have been permanently banned. If you have any objections, please go to the official website within 3 days to appeal. While Chu Shu was sparring with someone's sister again, Hela, Thor's sister, finally completed the conquest of the Hell's border. She and her army of undead flattened all resistance forces on this dimension. Inside the spirit prison, several towering furnaces were working day and night. Next to them, piles of demon corpses formed several mountains. Low-level demons that were conscripted were still continuously bringing corpses from other places. Due to the large number of corpses, several furnaces under construction had sprung up nearby. Lady Hela, please follow me. I have found a small group of rebels over here. Beside Hela, our old friend, Naster, was nodding and bowing, acting as a guide. Get lost. You make me feel sick just by looking at you. Hela was a typical warrior. She despised traitors like Naster the most. Although Hela's army was able to quickly conquer a dimension with the help of Nastier, she still despised this half-human, half-demon creature. Although I don't understand why Daring spared your life. But you better not think that you can truly become one of us. After listening to Hela's words, Nastier didn't dare to argue back. A look of helplessness filled his horse-like face. What can I do? I'm only 970 years old, I just want to live. What crime have I committed? Although Nastier had countless words in his heart, he didn't dare to say anything in front of Hela. After all, this person. But he slaughtered millions of hell demons without hesitation. He could only silently roll away, walk to a distance, and sigh to the sky. Once upon a time, when Chu Shu first summoned it, he called it the Great Hell Demon. He even said, I am your follower, and now that there is trouble in the mortal world, I urgently need to borrow your power. But now, Nastier recalled what happened not long ago. Chu Shu came with the aura of the Heavenly Father. Nastier quickly thought of a solution, knelt down with a thud, and said, Lord Mordo, I am willing to go through fire and water for you in the future. He saved his life. I'm really clever. Thinking of his actions back then, Nastier's face was filled with pride. Who says being a dog is not good? HMPH, that's because they haven't been one. Nastier felt proud of being a dog for humans. Soon, he forgot about Hela's insults and happily walked back. Halfway through, a fiery red figure appeared out of thin air and blocked Nastier's path, facing away from him. It seems like you enjoy serving humans. That figure seemed displeased with Nastier's behavior, speaking in a cold tone. Who are you? Who are you to call humans? That's my great master. Nastier was annoyed and directly revealed his battle form, which was just slightly longer claws. Me? That figure chuckled, slowly turning around. Trask, you may not know me, but you must have heard of my name. Let me introduce myself, I am Mephisto. The air froze. Nastier extended his claws, but his entire body stiffened in place, unable to move. Oh no. He's done for this time. Mephisto, this is not where you should be. Just as Nastier thought he was done for, Hela's voice suddenly sounded from the side. Oh Satan. Nastier had never thought that Hela's voice, the Demon Queen, could sound so pleasant. Hela, if I remember correctly, this should be Balast's territory, right? So, you shouldn't be here either. Upon hearing Hela's voice, Mephisto ignored Nastier, the Trask. He turned around and sneered, Balast is dead. There's a new master here now. Hela's gaze turned cold. Although Mephisto's strength had already reached the level of a godfather, much stronger than her, she wasn't afraid at all. She even had some anticipation. Because the thin spirit prison had already descended, she urgently needed a new target. Could it be? You want to become Satan? Mephisto's words carried a hint of threat. Satan. This title has been used by many in the various hells, including Mephisto himself, but they are only self-proclaimed Satans, not the true Satan. Because the true Satan is the supreme ruler of the various dimensions of hell. Equivalent to an emperor, he is the complete lord of hell. The lords of the various hells have stood before the throne of Satan, but no one dares to sit down. Even Mephisto, the true level godfather, never thought he could rule over the various dimensions of hell. Hela is different. She is here to cause trouble. She can't stand a day without a fight. Satan? What's wrong with that? Facing Mephisto's threat, Hela not only doesn't back down, but even carries a hint of anticipation. The spirit prison has already been fought. If you keep pushing, the next one to be fought will be your flame hell. You really are a war maniac. Mephisto clearly understands Hela's thoughts. As a demiurge, above the true gods, it can only be said, Hela, you truly live up to your reputation. No wonder Odin sealed you in the underworld. Mephisto accurately stepped on Hela's sore spot. It intended to provoke Hela with this statement. But Hela showed no reaction. Are you done talking? You can leave now. Hela's expressionless. A thrilling war and massacre, satisfying her desire for conquest and slaughter. And in Helheim, while Hela became Chu Shu's woman, she also agreed to a trilateral agreement. As long as there's a fight, she doesn't have to bother with that old man Odin. After all, it's just a fight, no matter who it is. You. Mephisto clearly didn't expect this reaction from Hela. But fortunately, it had another card up its sleeve. Who would have thought? Odin's eldest daughter, Asgard's princess, a lord of the underworld, would choose a weak human as your man. Hee. Is it inappropriate for us to be a mismatched couple? By the way, what's the name of your human? Chu Shu. Mephisto clearly did a lot of research before coming. Even the relationship between Hela and Chu Shu. It's all clear. What do you want? Hela's tone turned cold. The night sky sword flipped along her wrist and appeared out of thin air. Don't be nervous, Hela. I'm just sending someone to Earth to make contact with him. Don't forget, your little boyfriend has an extremely rare and pure soul. I even suspect that you're only with him for his soul. As a demon who excels in conspiracies, Mephisto had a sinister smile on its face. You're sending someone to Earth. But Hela caught the key point in Mephisto's words. Her gaze returned to calm, and the night sky sword flipped and disappeared again. Hela understood. With Chu Shu's strength, unless Mephisto personally goes to Earth, it's useless for anyone else to go. Haha, that's right. It probably won't be long. You will have to come to the flame hell to find your little boyfriend's soul. Mephisto is very confident in the personnel it arranged to go to Earth. Dealing with a human is nothing. If it weren't for the fear of causing too much commotion and attracting the attention of the tongue. Mephisto even planned to go to Earth himself and meet this human who can subdue the goddess of death. Then I'll wait for that day. Hela had a smile on her face. She didn't take Mephisto's intimidation to heart at all. It seems this guy doesn't know that Chu Shu has become the Heavenly Father. You will. Mephisto's figure slowly dissipated. Just like it appeared out of thin air, it disappeared into thin air. Hey, Lady Hela, shouldn't we inform? Seeing Mephisto disappear, Nastier trembled and walked out from behind the hiding stone with a shaky voice. Hela became annoyed at the sight of his cowardice. Get lost. All right. Nastier immediately scurried away. Hela thought for a moment and decided to go to Earth to inform Chu Shu about Mephisto's situation. The barrier between the spirit prison and Earth is now very weak. Hela waved her hand. and tore open a dark green teleportation channel. Stepping into it, Hela's figure disappeared for a few seconds before returning. "My dear darling, you've given me quite a surprise." Hela's face turned gloomy upon returning to the spirit prison. She quickly issued new orders to her undead army. "Continue the sweep. Find the resisting demons. Kill them all." The next day, the morning sun shone into Chushu's bedroom and fell on the faces of two people. Chushu, how could you have fallen so low, unable to extricate yourself all night?" Chushu rubbed his face, feeling ashamed of his indulgent behavior. After getting up, he looked back at Wanda, who was still asleep, feeling even more ashamed. "I can't be so selfish in the future. I should think more for others. After all, not everyone has the physical fitness like mine." Chushu reflected deeply, and realized his mistake. After instructing Wanda to rest well for the next few days, Chushu left the bedroom. Downstairs. Black Cat, Felicia looked at Chushu with a strange look. "Beast. If you say one more word, you'll be next." Chushu didn't mince words. He shut Black Cat up with just one sentence. Scared, Black Cat immediately shut her mouth and dared not say another word. The commotion was too frightening. Erica, on the other hand, was as calm as ever. Sitting quietly on the sofa, maintaining her weapons. As if she hadn't heard anything. Weird. Why'd I feel like I sensed Hela's aura? Chushu frowned. He went outside, not knowing if it was an illusion. It seemed like there was a faint trace of Hela's aura in his own yard. But that aura was very weak, as if it had just come and gone without staying. Never mind. I'll find out when I go back to the spirit prison. Chushu shook his head carelessly. It's better to spend time on understanding women's thoughts than to worry about this. Back inside, Chushu picked up his phone. The air suddenly quieted down. A few seconds later. Coulson. A roar came from outside the house. It even startled Ben Parker, who was watering the flowers next door. This young man. Ben Parker shook his head and didn't want to meddle. He still had to go to work after watering the flowers. Recently, Peter didn't know what he was doing upstairs, making loud noises and spending more money than usual. One delivery box after another, all containing metal parts and machinery. Sigh. Young people these days, I just don't understand. Texas. Woodland City. The global Ultron incident swept through. It seems to have had little impact on the remote southern town. The people living in the town are typical rednecks, poor, backward, dirty, uneducated, quick to draw guns, and with strong racist tendencies. But there are advantages to being backward. For example, the AI war over there did not have much impact on their lives. They drink when they want to drink. They fight when they want to fight. Tisk. A 1969 Dodge Charger muscle car parked in front of the tavern. A young man in a leather jacket got out of it. He had a high hairline. He was almost as bald as Phil Coulson. A glass of bourbon. Also, I'm looking for someone, Johnny Blaze. The young man walked into the tavern. He placed several $100 bills on the table. I suppose you're Robbie, right? Suddenly, a voice came from behind the young man. He turned around, and the person speaking was none other than Johnny Blaze, the previous Ghost Rider. Kid, you're dealing with something very dangerous. Trust me. You can't beat it, I've tried. Now Johnny Blaze is a middle-aged man. His hairline is much higher than the young Robbie's. It's almost Mediterranean. At the moment, it has been almost 7 years since he became the Ghost Rider. In between, he has dealt with Mephisto countless times. And suffered countless losses. I didn't have a choice. It threatened me with my uncle's soul. Robbie Reyes sat across from Johnny. From the moment he walked in until he sat down, his eyes were fixed on this senior. Just like Johnny Blaze, Robbie is also a Ghost Rider. But inside Johnny is a powerful spirit of vengeance named Zarathos, the former lord of the fiery hell. Later, it was defeated by Mephisto, had its memory erased, and became the source of the Fly's ability. As for Robbie Reyes, his ability comes solely from the soul of his deceased uncle, Eli. So his strength is far from being as powerful as Johnny's. Why did it send you to find me? Johnny's tone was displeased. The reason he lives hidden in this remote place is to avoid Mephisto. But he was still found. To collect someone's soul. Robbie took out his phone. He opened a photo and placed it in front of Johnny. It only said this. Johnny didn't even look at the photo. Based on his understanding of Mephisto, this guy would promise a lot of benefits when hiring someone, but in the end, he wouldn't fulfill them. It promised. After the job is done, it won't come looking for you for 10 years. Robbie relayed Mephisto's promise. Johnny fell silent. Although he knew that this was most likely an empty promise, being able to live peacefully for 10 years was already a luxury for him. The conditions were indeed tempting. I agree. Johnny slowly stood up. He walked outside the tavern, whistling. A driverless retro-style Harley-Davidson motorcycle immediately roared and rushed over. Kid, you should also have a part in this mission, right? Johnny rode the motorcycle and turned to look at Robbie Reyes. Can you keep up? Vroom. A loud roar. The Harley motorcycle instantly ignited the flames of hell and underwent a transformation. It turned into a flaming motorcycle with a skull on the front. And Johnny, in an instant, also turned into a burning skeleton. Definitely can. Robbie immediately climbed into the muscle car. As the vehicle started, he and this Dodge Warhorse burned together. Old man, please go ahead. Hey, Johnny and Robbie exchanged a glance. Then, the two skeletons drove their respective flame vehicles, one in front and one behind, and roared away. Not long after the departure of the two generations of Ghost Riders. In a small town, a black mist slowly gathered. A demon, completely black with hair standing up like quill, appeared in the town. Blackheart. Mephisto's son. However, the relationship between this father and son was not close, to say the least. They were at odds with each other. Blackheart had been wanting to defeat his father for years. To rule over the fiery hell alone. As early as 7 years ago. It betrayed Mephisto and came to Earth, preparing to seize a sacred artifact called the San Venganza contract. Unfortunately, being not very smart, it was defeated by Johnny, who had just become Ghost Rider, and almost lost its life. Plot of Ghost Rider 1 in 2007, returning to hell, it was beaten by its old man, Cuckoo. But now, Blackheart finally had the opportunity for revenge, the pure soul. I didn't expect it, Father, I know all your plans. This time, in order to come to Earth, Blackheart paid a great price. But as long as it could seize the pure soul in advance, everything would be worth it. As long as I get the pure soul, Father, you can wait to die. At the same time, Chu Shu was unaware that his soul had attracted the attention of a group of people. But even if he knew, he wouldn't be surprised. After all, the soul is something that can be sold. But compared to selling his soul, he had something more important to deal with now. Phil Coulson. Get your ass out here. You bastard. I can't believe I thought you were a boss. Due to the complete destruction of the helicarriers, S.H.I.E.L.D. had to move its command center back to the Triskelion headquarters on the ground. But now, the Triskelion building was also about to be demolished by Chu Shu. Phil Coulson. What the hell did you do? Didn't I tell you to maintain a friendly relationship with him, use real moves? Why is he so angry? Inside the crumbling building, Nick Fury, who had just been pulled out of the sea, was faced with a mess that he hadn't had time to deal with. Then he saw Chu Shu, full of killing intent, coming to him. Calling out Phil Coulson. It's me. Phil Coulson shrank into a corner. Feeling extremely regretful. Director, how about you go out and talk to Chu Shu? Say that I'm not here, I'm begging you. Me? Go out? Nick Fury almost laughed out loud. Based on the situation outside, he probably wouldn't be able to finish a few sentences before Chu Shu killed him. Boss. I told you before, that game has a mechanism of collective punishment. But you never listened to me. Sky, who was responsible for writing the script for Phil Coulson, also huddled in a corner. Using a few books to protect her head, she muttered softly. Stop talking. All I have left now is regret. Phil Coulson's face was filled with despair. His pleading eyes scanned everyone present. Is there any way to salvage the situation? How about you guys help me release a statement, saying, I, Phil Coulson, really didn't cheat. Successful rights protection. When Chu Shu left the Trident headquarters, not only was his game account unbanned, but he also happened to capture an assistant. Chu Shu, can you put me down now? Sky's face turned red. She was carried away by Chu Shu, so using the word capture is indeed appropriate. Okay. Chu Shu agreed readily. But in practice, he waited until they passed through the teleportation gate and returned to the holy place before putting Sky down. Not only Sky, Chu Shu also took away the Shield 084 item, the obelisk. Chu Shu, this thing is very dangerous, it turns people into stone. Seeing Chu Shu holding the obelisk without any protection, Sky's first reaction was to remind him. As for being forcibly taken away, she had no resistance at all. After all, she had only recently joined S.H.I.E.L.D. She didn't have a strong sense of belonging. And with the infiltration of Hydra and the crashing of the helicarrier, colleagues dying one after another, Sky felt even more insecure about S.H.I.E.L.D. Now she could cling to the thigh of a demon hunter. At least safety was not a problem. Sky, do you know why S.H.I.E.L.D. is interested in you? Chu Shu held the obelisk in his hand and slowly exerted force with his palm. Crack. Sky widened her eyes, because she saw Phil Coulson and the others using a variety of methods to no avail against the obelisk. But Chu Shu was able to slowly shapeshift it with just one hand. He forcefully broke open its shell. Sky, can you imagine gaining super abilities like me? Chu Shu's voice seemed to possess magic. Did she want to? Definitely. Sky, who had always been an ordinary person, how could she not want to become a superhero? Can I really? Sky's excited voice trembled. Definitely, you just need to hold it. Chu Shu opened the shell of the obelisk, revealing the dazzling Terrigen crystal inside. Sky was not a normal human. Her true identity was actually an unawakened inhuman. And the mist released by the Terrigen crystal was the medium for awakening inhumans' super abilities. Hearing Chu Shu's words, Sky didn't hesitate at all and grabbed the Terrigen crystal. And the moment her fingers touched it, a mist spread out like a shockwave. Mirror dimension. Before the mist could spread, Chu Shu immediately released a high-level magic he had learned but never used, the mirror dimension. He sealed the Terrigen mist in a limited mirror dimension. After all, this thing is only useful for inhumans. For other races, it is a deadly poison. Especially for ordinary people, just a touch would petrify them completely. Chu Shu, I can't move, After touching the Terrigen mist, Sky's body immediately became immobile, and a layer of stone-like substance quickly covered her entire body. At first glance, it looked like she had been petrified. Soon after, Sky, like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon, broke through the stone shell that enveloped her entire body. And she really did look like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. She was radiant. Her skin was as fair and tender as a newborn baby's. Did I really become a superhero? I'm crying. Sky looked at her own hands in disbelief. She could sense it within her body. There was a powerful force that could be controlled by her will. You can release it anytime. Give it a try. You are currently in an independent space, which will not cause any damage to reality, Chu Shu said. Only then did Sky start testing with relief. She raised one hand, closed her eyes, and attempted to communicate with the energy inside her body for the first time. A few seconds passed. Just when Chu Shu thought Sky's first attempt was going to fail. Boom. A visible transparent shockwave suddenly burst out from Sky's palm. It blasted a path through the holy place hall in the mirrored space. Display cabinets, wooden screens, and walls along the way were all destroyed by the shockwave. I'm sorry. Sky opened her eyes. After seeing the damage she caused, she was startled. Don't worry. This is an independent space. What you destroyed was just an image projected from the real world. In other words, it was fake, Chu Shu said, waving his hand. The previously damaged holy place hall returned to its original state in the blink of an eye. Phew, good. Sky patted her chest, relieved. You have quite the potential. Chu Shu shook his head slightly, casually closing the mirrored space and returning to reality. Now, don't mess around, we're back. He added a reminder at the end. Sky's little head nodded vigorously, looking at Chu Shu with admiration. Who cares about Shield Cat Shield Bureau? Not familiar. Don't call me in the future. I'm afraid Chu Shu will misunderstand. After the account was unbanned, Chu Shu embarked on the road to climb the ranks again. But this time, Sky joined him for a game. The speed of a female hacker's hand was indeed extraordinary. Someone was carrying them. Chu Shu's rank began to soar again. In just 3 days, he climbed to the top 10 in the American server, becoming the well-deserved #1 Batman of the American server. You call yourself the #1 Batman of the American server? If it weren't for the sweetheart with wave-generating powers carrying you, would you have won this game? Those are couples playing together. You let your sister carry you, have you no shame? After finishing a game, the opponent on the other side started typing in the public chat in anger. Chu Shu glanced at it, his expression calm. At the moment, his mentality was already different from before. Having a sister carry you, that's also a skill. If you have the skill, find a sister who can deal 1.5k damage in 1 second and break through at the speed of light. Yeah. Won again. Sky stretched lazily, put down her phone, and said, "That's it for today, I'm going to Holy Place to play with Wanda." In 3 days, Sky, who had a naturally cheerful personality, quickly became friends with everyone. Especially with Wanda, they had the closest relationship. Okay. Go ahead, Chu Shu smiled as he watched Sky leave. Until Sky entered the portal, immediately turned around. So you're calling me a brat? Alright. I've remembered your ID, wait for me. I'll be at your place in no time. Different mentality. That's because the speed at which I seek revenge is faster than before. Just as Chu Shu was preparing to beat someone up through the internet. Outside the community, a retro-style Harley motorcycle and a 1969 Dodge Charger. Both braked and stopped by the road outside the community. This is the place, according to the information provided by Mephisto. The target is in this community. Robbie and Johnny parked their car. Their gaze turned towards the community where Chu Shu was located. In order to avoid alerting the target, neither of them transformed into Ghost Riders. Robbie, do you know this person? I mean, do you think he's guilty? I don't know, but I heard. He seems to have participated in the Second Battle of New York. Robbie shook his head. Although he was a young man, he didn't pay much attention to current events. Regarding the target, he only knew a rough idea, and he only had a vague understanding of the Ultron crisis. He only knew that a bad AI had been stopped by someone, but he didn't know who stopped it. The Eye of Judgment will give us the answer. Johnny sighed. As a middle-aged man, he was no longer as reckless as he was when he was young. Most importantly, he didn't want to be a tool for Mephisto to harm innocent people anymore. Let's see. If he really is a good person, I'd rather fight with Mephisto for a few more years. Upon hearing Johnny's words, Robbie fell silent. He wasn't like Johnny, who had enough to eat and didn't have to worry about his family. Johnny could give up the mission, but he couldn't. Because Mephisto had control over his uncle's soul, which was the spirit of vengeance within him, the spirit of Eli. Let's go. Johnny and Robbie started walking towards the community. But they didn't notice that their conversation had been heard by a blonde girl not far away. The target? Participated in the Second Battle of New York? Isn't that Chu Shu? Gwen was originally just buying a cup of milk tea nearby. But she saw 2 mysterious men in leather jackets and Mediterranean hairstyles. They were acting suspiciously on the side of the road. They didn't look like good people at all. No. I have to stop them. Gwen put down her milk tea. She quickly rushed into an alley and took off her coat. Inside was the black and white spider battlesuit. Or you could call it Gwen's battlesuit. The difference between Gwen's battlesuit and a regular spider battlesuit was that Gwen's battlesuit had a red lining on the hood. There were also some red spider web patterns on the arms. At the same time, in the Parker house next to Chu Shu's. Upstairs, in Peter Parker's room, there were intermittent sparks of metal welding, sometimes bright and sometimes dim. It's finally going to be completed. Peter Parker looked exhausted. He hadn't been out for a long time, and he had grown a little stubble at such a young age. In front of him was a manually welded armor, similar to the Iron Man Mark I. But much smaller in size, and it wasn't a fully enclosed metal armor. To improve flexibility, the metal parts of this armor only covered the joints of the body. Other parts were made of more flexible synthetic fibers, similar to the material on a bulletproof vest. With this armor, I will have the ability to protect Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Peter Parker gently touched the armor. During the last demon invasion, while being forced to evacuate, Peter looked at Uncle Ben and Aunt May, their fearful and panicked eyes, and vowed to protect them. Mr. Stark was able to create the first Iron Man battlesuit in a cave. I, Peter Parker, have better conditions. It's impossible not to be able to create it. Peter turned his head and looked at the wall covered with Iron Man posters. Now, Tony Stark has become his motivation to move forward. He is his idol. This slightly crude armor is the result of his imitation of Tony Stark. I have already submitted an internship application to Stark Industries. As long as I pass, I can. This summer. Peter's words were interrupted by a loud noise outside the window. Boom. Johnny looked at his beloved Harley motorcycle. It was thrown in front of him like a brick, causing his eyelids to twitch. Johnny approached and checked it. Fortunately, this was not an ordinary motorcycle, but a hellcycle modified by the power of the Ghost Rider. Even if it was thrown and smashed, it wouldn't be damaged. But Johnny was still very unhappy. Child. You made a mistake. Now leave, and I will not hold it against you. Johnny looked up at Gwen on the streetlight. Just now, it was this girl wearing the spider battlesuit who swung over on a cobweb and crashed in front of him and Robbie. Johnny was lucky. His temper wasn't as volatile as it used to be. Otherwise, with the girl's action of crashing his motorcycle, Eye of Judgment would have been enough to burn for several rounds. It's not me who should leave. It's you guys. Gwen jumped down from the streetlight. Her tone was firm. She stood in the way of Johnny and Robbie. It seems we have been exposed. This girl is working with the person we are looking for. Robbie realized. He transformed first. Hellfire instantly burned away all his flesh, turning him into a flaming skeleton wearing a leather jacket. Boom boom boom. The old muscle car parked outside the community roared and transformed into a burning hell race car. Flames spewed from the exhaust pipe, automatically coming to Robbie's side. Girl, leave. Right away. Robbie turned around and pulled out the weapon from the hell race car. A blazing chain. Pointing it at Gwen. Gwen's face under the mask turned pale. This was her first time fighting other Supermen after becoming Spider-Man. And the opponent looked too terrifying. Despite being afraid, Gwen still didn't back down. Still standing in front of Robbie and Johnny. I won't. You skeleton frame can't pass. Gwen shouted, holding her ground. Child, listen, we are not here to find you. Let alone hurt you. Johnny finished speaking. And he also transformed into Ghost Rider. And its appearance was even more terrifying than Robbie's. The true spirit of vengeance, emitting an extremely evil aura from within. A burning skull with black eye sockets that seemed to contain a black hole. As if looking at it, it would swallow one's soul. You. Gwen was truly panicked now. When Robbie transformed, it was still manageable. Her spider telepathy only emitted a danger warning, indicating that the enemy was slightly stronger than herself. But when Johnny transformed, the spider telepathy went crazy, buzzing. No matter how many skeleton frames you have, none of you are allowed to pass. Even so, Gwen still didn't move an inch. Thud thud thud. Just as Gwen and Johnny faced off, a heavy footstep sounded. Spider-Woman, I'm here to help you. Peter Parker, wearing homemade armor, ran over with heavy steps. He didn't recognize Gwen, but between Gwen and Johnny, he hesitated for no moment and chose to help Gwen. After all, those two skeletons didn't look like good guys. As another guy jumped out, Johnny turned his head and looked at Robbie. Kid, you didn't mention that this community is full of hidden talents, huh? And it's not over yet. Along with Peter in his armored suit, the gate of the Chu-Shu family was also opened. Erica walked out without saying a word, holding a katana. Then, Black Cat, also wearing a battlesuit, appeared. Wanda, Sky, and Chu-Shu, who seemed to be enjoying the show. It's quite lively here, isn't it?